Delaware 21 is now back in session. We were in recess until 10 o'clock. It is now roughly 10:01. With that, is there anything we need to do before just...
We need to read the regular...
Yeah, go ahead.
Resolution number 21-517, public hearing for consideration of the Zerby O'Keefe number 265 drainage improvement petition filed by Gary Graham and Linda Graham and others.
So moved.
Second, discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 21-517. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Resolution number 21-518, in the matter of approving for a specific occurrence a suspension of Rule 3, speaker registration, Rule 4, limitations, and Rule 7, public comment procedure from the rules governing public comment before the Board of County Commissioners of Delaware County, Ohio.
So moved.
Second, discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 21-518. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Okay, welcome everyone. We had the opportunity to get together, I believe it was in October, if memory serves me. And it was a virtual meeting, so I think we had some issues and challenges. So I think it's great that we're back and there's a physical presence so everybody can be heard. And that's the purpose of the hearing, to make sure everyone does get heard. And I'm going to read you some of the guidelines we're going to follow today to ensure a successful outcome for everyone. Welcome to the reconvening of the first hearing for the consideration of the Zerby O'Keefe number 265 drainage improvement petition. There's a sign-in sheet in the outside the hearing room. Hopefully everyone had an opportunity to sign that, or when you do have an opportunity, please sign it. Here's an overview of what will happen today. There are copies available of the report from the county engineer. This is the same report that was previously read at the hearing last fall. And we will have a summary of that report just to make sure everyone's on the same page. That'll be done as the conclusion of my remarks here. We will then hear questions from the board. The board will acknowledge receipt of the written application in favor or against the petition. After questions, there will be time for testimony from landowners. Those speaking for or against the project must be either an owner, as defined in section 6131-01 of the revised code, or an attorney speaking on behalf of an owner. During testimony, you will be asked to take an oath. When it is time to offer testimony, we will work our way through the participants, and testimony will continue. If new information comes up, additional people can speak. We will handle the testimony, those in favor, and then those opposed. We did not do that during the virtual because it was difficult to tell when you're online who's opposed. But we'll find that this will work much better in the physical setting if we do it that way. After the hearing is closed, the board will decide whether to proceed with the petition or dismiss the petition. These are the factors that will be considered in that decision. Whether the board finds that the proposed improvement is necessary, whether it will be conducive to the public welfare, and the board also finds that it is reasonably certain that the benefits of the proposed improvements will outweigh its cost. And those are the criteria we'll take into consideration to move from first hearing to second hearing and the evaluation process in between. If the board proceeds with the petition, the Delaware County Engineer will prepare plans, reports, and individual schedules of assessments for the project. When plans are complete, a final hearing will be set. Notification of the hearing will be given to landowners, and the board will consider the project at that time. With that, I'll ask Soil and Water to come forward, introduce yourself, and provide the summary that I alluded to.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brett Bacon, Delaware Soil and Water Conservation District. I'm just going to hit some of the highlights of the first hearing report since it's been a little bit since we last met. The petition specifically asks for, in Delaware County, Brown Township, within the Zerby O'Keefe number 265 watershed, and generally following but not limited to the course and termini of the existing improvements, to generally improve the drainage, both surface and subsurface, to a good and sufficient outlet by replacing, repairing, or altering the existing improvements as required and or creating new surface and subsurface drainage mains or laterals as requested by this petition. I will skip ahead to the existing conditions section of the report. The Soil and Water District and Engineer's Office made observations using on-site evaluation and a review of available historic records, aerial photography, topographic mapping, and soils mapping. The watershed is approximately 448 acres. Predominantly in use is agricultural. Improvements in the watershed have been constructed using the ORC 6131 process in 1906 And to the best of our knowledge, those improvements consisted of subsurface drain installation only. The drainage system does not appear to be functioning at or near optimum capacity due to the lack of comprehensive maintenance and the generally deteriorated condition of the infrastructure. The lack of uniform and maintained surface grading results in significant areas of ponded water. The subsurface drain system appears to have significant areas of structural failure as observed by sporadic blowouts along its course. These conditions are indicators of an overburden and aged drainage infrastructure. While the existing drainage system still provides some degree of drainage benefit, it does not appear to function as a good and sufficient outlet. Our cost estimate for the project overall is $263,545.50. And this estimate has not been based on, it's preliminary and has been made in the absence of topographic survey of the project area. The second bullet point is also important. The above estimate assumes complete replacement of the subsurface drainage system. Should the project be approved to proceed to a final hearing, improvements made by private property owners will be evaluated for acceptance onto drainage maintenance in their current condition. If part of the current subsurface drainage system is able to be accepted onto maintenance, the value of that infrastructure would be removed from future construction estimates. However, said value would remain a part of the drainage maintenance base for the project. And then I will skip ahead to the conclusion of the engineer. Based on all of the information gathered and generated for this project, I believe this project is technically feasible and would adequately serve the project area's drainage needs. However, the testimony brought to the board by the landowners as to whether the benefits of this project exceed the costs should be given significant consideration in the decision to move forward with this project.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the board at this time?
Yeah, Brett, the existing tile, is that mainly in the farm or in the farmland?
Farm
parcels?
and through the woods.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that's pretty unusual, isn't it, to have existing tile be considered for part of a drainage petition, or is that regular standard?
It would be unusual that it would be in good enough shape that we would do that. If you recall, we had a project a couple years ago where we took a large amount of existing tile onto the maintenance as is because it wasn't in good shape. In this case, to the best of my knowledge, most of the tile that's been installed on parcels number 2 and 16 on your maps, that's newly installed tile, so we would evaluate that for capacity, grade, installation conditions, and if we find that it meets current engineering standards, it could be accepted as is.
What's the impact of the railroad on this area? I know we've had conversations with the railroad.
It's difficult.
Makes it difficult.
Railroads are notoriously difficult to work with. Our hope would be that, the tile as it exists and the surface culverts as they exist under the railroad would be acceptable. If not, we would have to propose, work through the railroad, and then that obviously can complicate a project.
Has anything happened since October of 20 when you first issued this report that would change the report in any way?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. That's it for me.
Ultimately, the railroads would have to work with us in the process, in theory.
In theory, yes.
Okay, I need to acknowledge any receipt of any written applications in favor or against the petition.
Yes, we have, Mr. James Sheets has written a letter that he wants the project approved.
Okay. With that, any other questions from commissioners? Okay, then we're going to move to those who are in favor of the proposal, the petition. And again, after we go through that process, we'll then ask for those who are opposed to the process. And then there could be some other back and forth to clarify some points. So who would like to speak in favor of the petition? If you'll come forward, raise your hand, I'll acknowledge you. Come forward, introduce yourself, your lot number, so we can identify where your property is, and then I will swear you in. So proceed. Come forward.
Gary, excuse me, Gary Graham.
Okay. And your property lot number, do you know the number?
That would be number
Okay.
216.
216. If you raise your right hand, I'll swear you in.
Affirm.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Affirm. May I present you with something that will help understand?
Thanks, sir.
Okay, very good.
I'll allow you a minute to read that if you'd like.
Well, for the benefit of everyone here, perhaps you should summarize it so everyone in the audience will also have knowledge of what's in this report. This will be part of evidence, and I will read it, but as a courtesy to everyone, they need to know what's in it as well.
There's a map that basically says everything. It's in words.
Anything you else want to add about your comments here?
We stand with this. We believe that the second estimate, if we downsize this project, which is explained why we want it downsized in this brief first page. It's almost 91,000 less. I think that's going to be a lot more palatable to landowners. And we are totally in favor of this project simply because it's called maintenance. For various reasons, it was never maintained. But now we have the opportunity to do it with far better equipment available than when it was built over 100 years ago. I liken it to where we're standing. You've done a wonderful job maintaining this building. We need to do the same thing with our farmland.
So I want to summarize, you think it can be done with a reduction of original estimate by, I think you said 95,000?
Approximately 91,000.
Okay.
Yes, that would be
But you
very,
still support the project?
still support the project, yes.
At some point, we'll have Soil and Water comment about that, but I think we'll do that at a later date once we get through this. And then we'll have to evaluate how we proceed from that point.
Sure.
Okay? Anything else you'd like to add?
I hope I speak for everyone that's in favor of it. It's been a long time to get something done.
Okay?
And any opposition, they need to rethink why. That's all I ask.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the project? I'll ask one last time, then we'll ask for a name. Does anyone else want to speak in favor of the project? Okay, then we'll move to anyone who would like to speak in opposition of the project. And same criteria, you come forward, introduce yourself, and I will swear you in.
Commissioners, my name is David Shade. I'm an attorney here on behalf of Honduras Farms and Thistlegate 5 LLC, which is the subsidiary LLC which owns the property. I think the most efficient way for me to do this is,
Could you give me the lot number of the property, please?
yes, it's 4, oops, I just laid it down.
It's the lot number that we get on the screen.
It's which?
Right in front of you, too.
It's 18-5, 13 and 4.
13 and 4, okay. Okay, let me swear you in first.
I think the way this would work most efficiently is to swear Mr. Reffett and I both in at the same time, because I'm really going to direct him, his,
If Mr. Shade is not providing testimony, he's just acting as an attorney, he does not have to take the oath if he's just
Okay.
going to be asking questions. So his
So it's
witness,
not necessary for him to be sworn in then?
Mr. Reffett, if he's going to just be asking Mr. Reffett questions, then Mr. Reffett would be sworn in as the person providing testimony.
We've been there before, haven't we?
We have.
So everything you've heard, the lot numbers are correct as they were represented?
Yes, sir.
And for the record, your name?
It's Charlie Reffett.
Charlie, let me turn my page here. And I'm going to swear you in. You raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Proceed.
Would you go into your occupation and background?
So I'm the president of Hondros Farms. I've been with the company for about 6 years. I've done plenty of general contracting and tile work and tile improvements on multiple properties.
And I'm going to hand you what's been marked as Hondros 1 and ask you to identify it.
Just the general warranty deed and stating the parcel numbers.
And that's for the, where Thistlegate 5 acquired title
He needs,
through,
Swear, man.
no, he needs to be at the microphone when he's
Yeah,
asking.
you're not getting, you're gonna have to sit at the
Yeah.
mic, or
That's
you're
okay.
gonna have to.
and that, so there were 500 and some acres purchased from the Radabaugh family.
Correct.
Okay. Now, I'm going to hand you what's been marked as Hondros 2. And try to hold
Sir,
it.
you're gonna have to be at the mic, you guys gotta figure this out.
Yeah, I'll go back over. Just hold it up that way if you could.
Sure.
And what is that document?
This is a map of our systematic tile work that we installed about 3 years ago on our entire property there, located in that watershed.
I'm going to hand you Hondros 3. And what is that?
It's a bill for about $160,000 and some change.
116 or 160?
$160,000 to systematically tile that field right there, where the main runs through, or the lateral.
Okay.
I'm going to hand you Hondros 4 and ask you to identify that.
This is an easement, if I remember right. Yes, an easement for the Grahams to send their tile across our property at the southwest corner of that parcel.
And that's a perpetual easement you granted to the Grahams?
Yes.
And when you look back at number 2, the drainage system, would you open that again?
Sure.
So is that area what is shown on the map as, or on the drainage drawing as areas 18, 5, 10, and 4?
It's 18, 5, 13, and 4.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
apologize. My eyes aren't that good anymore.
You're all right.
And where does all of that drainage outlet into?
It actually outlets directly into Sugar Run on our property. We do not use that old main at all. And what we did there is to not jeopardize the integrity of it, we paralleled it. So we left it intact, and we do not run any water into it whatsoever. And none of our surface water goes into it either, it goes directly into Sugar Run.
And how well is your property drained at this point?
It's the first field that gets planted of 3,000 acres every year.
And would you indicate whether your thoughts about what benefit, if any, Hondros Farms and Thistlegate 5 would receive from the drainage project that's being proposed?
0.
That's all we have.
Thank you.
We'd ask that-
Mr. Reffy, do you have anything to add?
You want to add anything?
I'm not opposed to the Grahams having drainage. I think if it were me, that would make sense to install 14, if that was my farm that I just purchased. But it doesn't make any sense to install 15. It seems like it's in good condition. The only thing would be to get it on petition to make sure they're safe forever. But I didn't just spend $160,000 to tile a field to turn around and sell it in a year. That's it.
Thank you.
So we would just ask that the 4 exhibits be admitted for your.
I'm sorry?
We would ask that the 4 exhibits that he testified about be admitted.
They will be included. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward and introduce yourself.
Thomas Davis,
Thomas Davis, correct?
Elm Valley Farm, part owner with my sister.
And your lot numbers?
Be 14, 9, 24, 25.
Very well. Okay, I need to swear you in. If you raise your right hand, do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Proceed.
Okay. I think, well, the benefit to us is not a whole lot on this project. Most of that tile is draining for us. I granted that some of through the woods is probably restricted, but I think it's a pretty expensive project for the benefit. A few years ago, the section, which is it's actually in the corner there, 8, where the tile goes through right there, which is actually on Miller's farm now with Stoner then. That section was redone and replaced with the permission of her. We had that part replaced over from the railroad to our property a little bit farther because of all the tree growth and it was collapsed and everything. It was backing up then. So we had that done back then. Greatly improved the flow because it was stopping there. And about 9 months later, the railroad came in and actually cleared out their ditch underneath the railroad. So it was cleared out. That is a 12-inch tile. So they cleared that out and fixed it. So underneath the railroad, it's been fixed over to our property. Most of the tile on 14, all the way through there is a 12-inch tile. There's a tile that was put in off of property 24. There's a tile that runs into the diagonally across there. That was a 6-inch tile that was put in, connected to that 12-inch tile in the woods. That's been draining for us. A lot of things has happened. We denied the permission for them to come on our property since they didn't have permission. My wife got involved in that because I wasn't home. It wasn't a very good situation. So
Now, who was not allowed on your property that got?
when they were doing all the tiling, they were wanting to connect to our tile. I didn't have any plans, didn't know their contractor, and basically I said no. And I guess they didn't know what no was, so we were informed they were back there digging with a track hoe. Wife ended up having to call the sheriff's department and get involved, and they were removed and the tile was repaired where they dug it up. And since then, I've denied all entry for them or connection or anything on our property because
By
of that.
them, who do you mean?
Graham,
I'm sorry, what?
Graham and his
Okay.
contractor. So, I know they're concerned about the flow through the woods. I think that's what everybody's concerned about. Just as I got a reputable contractor, and he went back and walked the whole thing and gave me a price for what his estimate is, replacing everything on 14, the tile, which would be basically from our property on the one end to their property on the other end. It is not their property. And that was replaced with a 12-inch tile, all redone, through the woods, which is the expensive part. And it comes in around $60,000, so that's pretty much, 1/3 of what they're complaining about, if not more. At this time, I'm opposed to it.
Yes. Say it again.
At this time, I'm opposed to it.
At this time, you're opposed to it. Does that mean there will be a time when you'd be in favor of it?
Maybe, maybe not. I have no.
Could you elaborate?
I have no details on what you have a proposed budget, and it does not have any details of exactly what kind of construction it is, what size of the tile, and whether that price is good anymore, because I can tell you right now, tile's up 30%, so, from that time of that estimate.
So my interpretation of your comment is, what you know now, you're opposed to it.
Yes,
That's subject to change based on new information.
yeah,
Fair.
I assume that price, if you did the exact same thing, it would be up now. So, that's about it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to? Okay, one last time I'll ask, is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to? Mr. Graham, I believe you raised your hand, so I assume you have something additional to add?
Yes.
Okay.
May I approach you?
Thank you.
This will address some words that were just spoken.
I'm going to read this. It's an apology. I did not have Gary Graham's approval to enter onto the Davis property. I apologize for any misunderstanding I had with Gary. So hopefully you shared that with him verbally as well.
Would you
Okay.
please indicate who signed that?
Okay.
Would you please say who signed that?
My apologies. I assume you handed it to me, so Bob Clark the second? Okay,
He was a contractor, spoke about.
okay. Since it came from you, I made an assumption. I apologize for that.
Would I be able to talk to Charlie?
Well, that's up to Charlie. So it's as long as it's related to this issue,
Sure.
and I trust it's going to be. Go ahead.
Sure, 100%. Charlie and I have spoke at length many times over this in person and on the phone and by text. And I'm going to say it, all I ask you to do is if you agree or not. We want the project, we just want it scaled down to the named Serby O'Keefe 265, what we asked for in the beginning. Is that correct in your mind?
That's what you want, from what I hear, yeah.
That works for you?
I'm not opposed to, I guess if we're out of it and that main goes out of it, it's between these guys at that point. It doesn't involve us, so I'd rather not get in the middle of it.
So you're in favor, I'm in favor, things get scaled down, that's what we desire.
Well, that's the decision we will be making in
That-
our role, and we have to
Correct.
follow the guidelines that are established for us. So, but I appreciate the information.
Anything else?
I guess I'll say, if there's ever a way to do it privately and go with his suggestion to solve the issue, $60,000, we know the problem's through the woods. That would be, if I was the property owner, that would be my first action, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay?
I need to defend myself and my family here. We approached the Davis family and the Skinner family many times, in person and by phone, willing to do this project on our own. That means we would be paying for it. We were met with continued denial to the point where their attorney even wrote a letter to me, I can't even go to Mr. Davis's front door. Now, I would like to know why.
Well, that's really not the purpose of our meeting here today,
Right.
so that's a question he'll have to have between the two of you.
So I need the commissioners to understand, we tried repeatedly. I tried, my son tried, my wife tried to reason with him about this.
Okay? Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to add anything that adds to the discussion? We don't need any repetitive testimony. If not, I'm going to ask Commissioner Bett, do you have any questions?
Well, yeah, I do. I'm not sure now is the right time because the scope of the project could significantly change. I don't know if.
Well, if you don't, I'm going to have this.
No, I don't have any questions of the people who testified.
No questions of people testifying. Brett, if you'll come back up. One, you've heard the comments today. To some degree, a change in the direction that was originally petitioned by at least one of the petitioners, but there were other petitioners. So we have to take that into consideration as well. Any comments you'd like to make?
We have had discussions with Mr. and Mrs. Graham and some of the other petitioners about this reduction in scope. We're certainly not opposed to it. You know, the point of the petition process is to meet the request of the petition. All we really ask for is clear direction coming out of this first hearing, so we know what marks were expected and trying to hit.
Hearing the comments that were made today, can you take those into consideration as you evaluate the project and ultimately could affect your initial estimate?
Certainly.
Okay. With that,
Yeah, do we, and this question maybe for Mr. Hostetler, our attorney, do we have to terminate this position and start a new petition to reduce the scope by half or more than half?
Well, there's a couple of ways that you could deal with this. You have to rule on the petition as it's presented to you.
Okay.
However, you can direct the county engineer to prepare alternate reports that, in their opinion, would meet the spirit of the petition. The statute does not require that there only be one potential remedy to the situation. So I would say that if you want to make a decision today, you could only make a decision as to the petition as presented.
does Soil and Water have the ability though to adjust that petition if we proceed to a second hearing if
No.
they do not?
No, your order would require that you set the route and termini of that improvement and the manner in which it's to be constructed, and that's the way that your order is written. The only alternative to do something different today would be to dismiss it, and then they could file a new petition requesting that narrower scope. So those are the options. You can have the engineer go back and prepare a different report, but they would have to be of the opinion that it still meets the request of the petition. So
They may not have that information today to make that judgment.
Correct. So it might be a situation where the best alternative would be to, if you're hearing evidence from not just the people opposed to it, but the people who are in favor of it, no longer support the petition as prepared, you could dismiss this petition, and if they want to file a new one, or if they can work out a private construction plan that they then want to have submitted for acceptance onto maintenance, there's a procedure in the statute to do that as well. So those are all options. I can't tell you which one is the correct one. Those are just the options.
Brett, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, as we stated in the first hearing report, we do not parcel out the estimate for a first hearing purposes, because we're just, the first hearing is really dealing with generalities. It would have been our intention all along that the different legs of this project and different sections of this project would be presented to the commissioners in a way such that at the final hearing, should you direct us to, do engineering for the project as it was presented back in October, would be presented to you in a way such that you could part and parcel that decision at that time if you so chose.
Well, I see your frown on your face. Are his comments, are they consistent?
If you want to approve the project today, you're approving it based on
How it's
this
petition.
report. And if it comes back and the plans are different than that, then you can rule on it at that time. But I just want to be clear about what you would be approving today. You would be, and I'll read straight from it, you determine that the route and termini of the proposed improvement and the manner of construction thereof shall be as set forth in the Delaware County Engineer's preliminary report. That's what your order, if you approve the petition today, would say. And that would mean both of these legs are what you are approving as the improvement. Now, if the plans come back and you want to scale that down later, that'd be a decision at the final hearing. But what you would be approving today would be the entire
I understand
project.
that, but we still have the flexibility to adjust based on the report that we're giving at the second hearing.
If you affirm your order or you deny it, you could make adjustments to it. I just want to be clear about
I
what you would be
understand,
approving.
I'm just trying to make clear for the benefit of everyone here, that there could still be flexibility where we end up, based on my understanding.
Commissioner Merrill, I'd also like to add in that, you know, part of our design process is also to meet with those landowners that sign a petition post first hearing, you know, in the survey and design phase of a project. We would meet individually with those landowners, and if we hear I'll say no desire or no need for certain parts of the project, or parcels that signed a petition don't desire the improvement to be designed to their property, then we would adjust the design accordingly. Sometimes landowners sign a petition not necessarily requesting the outlet be brought to them, but merely in support of someone else's petition.
Okay, I'm gonna have a comment, but there's a person that has their hand up, and he's very impatient, so I'm gonna let him speak. Anything else you want to add at this point?
Not unless you have other questions.
Do you have any questions for Brett at this point?
Yeah, I guess, just to make
You
it.
can lower your hand, I'll recognize, I promise.
Just to be sure I understand it, the northern leg of the two legs is what's saying, or what is being presented as not necessary.
That's my understanding, yes.
And then the southern leg, if you will, again, is what is more likely to be necessary.
Still being requested, yes.
Okay. And at this point, you don't have any breakdown of the 263,000, you don't have any breakdown between the two legs?
I actually do. If you give me just a second, I need to
Oh.
go back to my
But-
folder.
But we're basing that judgment based on not any educated perspective from the county. We're doing it based on testimony, and I'm not sure that's a good foundation on which for us to make an evaluation.
Correct.
So that's my concern if we went down that road. Anything else?
No,
Okay.
not right now.
Well, the individual, if you want to, you're probably gonna come here again, you might want to just take a seat there.
I do want to mention one other thing. What Brett mentioned with them having those conversations with property owners and then adjusting their plan, there is a procedure later in this process, if you approve this project for moving forward to design, that property owners can file applications to change the route, to make changes to the nature of the work. So that's another option where, you would be approving the petition as a whole, but then it would be incumbent upon the owners not just to share their information with Soil and Water, but to actually file applications to change the work. And then they could prepare plans in accordance with those, maybe alternatives, and present them at the final hearing. I mean, that's really what we're talking about.
And I guess that's the point I was trying to make, but I'd like to hear from the individual that wants to speak and been very patient. Are you speaking for, against, or just in general?
Just some comments.
Okay.
Do I need to swear in or anything?
You do. First of all, if you'll identify yourself.
My name is Ron Graham.
Ron Graham. I assume you're related to the Grahams.
I am. I'm the
And-
son.
Okay. And so you have a property interest in the property. To be able to speak, he has to have an interest in the properties,
Needs
correct?
to meet the definition of an owner.
Right.
Okay. So, do you have an ownership?
In our estate, yes.
I'm an heir.
I'm getting a no over here, so.
I'm an heir.
Well, I don't think that qualifies you as an owner. I don't want to do anything to jeopardize the proceedings, and you don't meet the definition, which we outlined at the beginning.
Okay.
So you are not in a position to comment according to our counsel,
Okay.
okay? I'm sorry.
I think it's an important comment that's,
Well, perhaps you could share that with your,
Okay.
I assume it's your father, and allow him to make that comment. Is that handling it correctly, Eric?
Yeah.
I'll get to you, I promise. Would you, someone in the back would like to speak, would you be comfortable with them going ahead and speaking while you put things together, or do you want to speak now?
Just let whoever needed to speak and then let him come.
I believe Brett was looking for some numbers to share with you.
Is that related to your comments?
I had mentioned it earlier, yes.
Yeah, so in our earlier discussion or meeting with Mr. and Mrs. Graham and other petitioners, we did develop a cost estimate for the scope of work that I was under the understanding they were going to request today. Revised construction estimate, and this would be eliminating that, I think what we're commonly calling the north lateral at this point, and estimating work up onto parcel 2, but not necessarily all the way across parcel number 2. Construction would be $150,200. Administration, engineering, and construction inspection, $15,020. Drainage maintenance pay in $7,510 for a total estimate of $172,730. And that would be revised or down from the $263,545.50 of the original estimate.
But that's an estimate, that is not your evaluation of the situation. So I just want to make that point.
That's an estimate not based on any kind of engineering or survey or on-site
Thank
evaluation.
you. Is that the response you want to provide? Do you have additional, Mr. Graham?
He needs another minute.
I'm sorry?
For me to say something that my son wanted to send through me, he needs a minute to.
Okay, that's fine. The individual in the back of the room has a comment. Should you come forward? Oh, we have two. Representative from the county engineer's office, let him go first.
Honorable Commissioners, I just wanted to provide us just a clarifying point within our, I'm sorry, Brett Bergerford, Drainage Engineer for Delaware County. Just wanted to clarify a point that wasn't that within our hearing report that we prepared that will hopefully address the dialogue. And I'll read it word for word. If the project proceeds to a final hearing, portions of the watershed may be further divided into sections to better define the areas of work and the associated costs and benefits. It's our intention that we essentially have two mains here. We have those two forks. And that it was our intention to come back if the project is approved, based upon our verbiage in our report, to have further clarification of these two. They're not separate, but they're components to the overall petition. So I don't know if that helps, hurts, or clarifies, but I just wanted to raise that point to you all.
Thank you. Come forward, please.
Good morning. I'm Connie Skinner, representing two entities. The first one being parcel number 10, which is owned and farmed by the Skinner family. I would just like to point out.
I'm going to have to swear you in, so.
Okay.
What other properties are you involved?
As a township trustee, as a
Okay.
representative for Brown Township.
If you'll raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Proceed.
I just want to point out number 10 is Skinner property. And even though it is not highlighted in blue, I just want it noted that that water drains the other direction. So away from this proposed tile work, drainage work. I just wanted that noted for the Skinner family.
It looks like you just have a little tiny sliver of
Yes,
lot number 10, parcel number 10, in this watershed,
correct,
the way it's drawn.
correct.
And you're saying that it
And-
really actually flows the other direction.
Correct. It does flow the other direction.
Okay.
And just as a township trustee, Harris Road right there is a township road. And I just truly hope that as they are changing the flow of the water, just that we have no water damage for the road. It's our duty and responsibility to maintain that township road, and just want to make sure they have worked with the county engineers to make sure that that road is not harmed in any way for the future. And I just want to remain neutral on this project, neither for or against the project.
Thank you, Connie.
Any questions for me?
I have nothing.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Brett, you want to comment about, I think the answer is obvious regarding the road, and I'll just leave it at that, let you comment.
Yeah, with regard to the road, the county engineer is the engineer for these projects. Obviously, any impact to the road would be evaluated by the engineer's office, and I'm not aware of a drainage project we've done in the county since I've been involved with these projects that's had an adverse impact to the road. So I hope that allays those concerns. With regards to the question of
Hold on a
park,
second.
sorry.
You just a nod of the head. Is that statement consistent with your belief as well, or you want to come forward?
In regards to the county engineer reviewing the projects for any
Impact it would
impacts.
have on the roads, I assume you're going to say it's going to be neutral, but it's not going to have a negative impact, but I want to hear that from you.
Again, Brett Berger for Delaware County Drainage Engineer. Yes, our office does review all the improvements that affect not only the overall drainage petition, but our staff reviews the road right-of-way drainage also, and any adverse or positive or neutral impacts that the petition may provide.
Okay. Is that helpful, Connie? Yes. Okay.
With regards to the question of the watershed on parcel number 10, I have had this fielded this question from Mr. Skinner a couple times in the past. We do not reevaluate the watershed until we get past this first hearing stage. At this time, the watershed is set by a combination of an automated tool using LiDAR data provided by the state of Ohio, and specifically on parcel number 10, that watershed is matched up to a previous petition project, the Primer Drainage Improvement Project that was done, I believe in 2006, 2007, and the watershed was set for that project. This project matched boundaries with that project, so certainly we will reevaluate that based on, you know, better available data, better available tools. But I think it's important to note that if that acreage from parcel number 10 is removed from the Zerbe-O'Keefe watershed, that would necessitate a revision to the schedule of maintenance assessments for the Primer project, because obviously that drainage has to go somewhere. If it's not draining into Zerbe-O'Keefe, it's draining into the Primer watershed. So we would need to make an adjustment to that watershed and the schedule of maintenance assessments accordingly.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Graham, are you ready? You've already been sworn in, so no reason to do that.
Well, we are encouraged to hear that Tom Davis said that he wants to improve and/or restore the Zerbe-O'Keefe on his excuse me, on his property, assuming it is meeting or exceeding soil and water standards. It's encouraging to know he feels that way.
Okay.
And back to doing this project individually or privately, there will be no recourse to deal with the railroad. We've already heard testimony from Brett about how hard the railroad is to deal with. When we run the petition under the railroad over to us, as indicated by the white line, it will make it a lot easier in future generations to deal with the railroad.
I'm going to ask you one question, very direct question. You've heard all the comments today. Are you still supporting the petition?
I still support the
Okay,
petition.
I just want to make that point clear, because your comments create some gray areas, for lack of a better phrase. Okay, thank you.
Well, I did want to go back to Brett Bergerford's initial comments about the language in the preliminary report.
Okay.
That doesn't change what my advice is. I understand what he's getting at, but that would be something that would come in at the final hearing when they say, okay, we're going to say that this is a lateral or this is a main, divided into sections. What you are doing today, if you decide to proceed, you have to take this estimate of cost, and you have to decide that the benefits will outweigh that cost. And so if there's some question as to whether those benefits to the northern half of this watershed will actually materialize, then that's something you take into consideration. You have to look at the total cost as presented and the benefits for the entire area. You can't segment it out.
But the purpose going from the first hearing to the second hearing is to get more definitive information to make a clear evaluation. Right now, it's somewhat subjective.
Your board are making these statements, not me or anybody else in this room. So I just want you to be comfortable with the statements that you're making, whatever action you do take or don't take.
Thank you. Did you have something else to add? There was a conversation between you and Scott. I thought maybe you had something you wanted to add. You're gonna come back up here a second. I'm gonna ask you the question I ask at 90% of these hearings. You know what that question is?
Anything change my mind?
Have you heard anything today that changes your position on moving forward on this project?
No, I have not.
Okay. Do you have any other additional questions for him or for someone else? Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Anything you want to, any observation before we adjourn this, because I think.
Yeah, I think we're done with the testimony.
I'm going to make a couple of comments, and you clarify if you think I'm wrong. I think that my evaluation, good, bad, or different, is we can start this thing all over again to no one's benefit, or we can continue down the road we're traveling with full faith and confidence in soil and water to evaluate the project and make the proper adjustments that, if in fact they believe they're appropriate. And I guess that gets down to trusting the process, and so those are my comments. Did I say anything that bothers you, or is that, you're good with that? Okay. Commissioner Bennett. So are we prepared to close the hearing then?
Yeah, I think that's the next step.
Resolution number 21-519, in the matter of closing the public hearing for consideration of the Zerby O'Keefe number 265 drainage improvement petition filed by Gary Graham and Linda Graham and others.
So moved.
Second, discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 21-519. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye. Okay, your thoughts or observations?
Well, this has taken a unique turn in that the northern lateral, I guess for lack of a better phrase, looks like it won't be needed to be done. And the southern lateral, main, I guess, really does need to be done. And to me, it seems pretty obvious that the southern main really does need to be done. And so overall, if we're able to segregate the costs between the two and proceed to the final hearing, I think that makes sense. So I guess that's where I am.
I guess my comment, and I think we're kind of in agreement. I don't think we have enough information at this point in time to determine exactly what it should look like. But I think our hope is, and our belief is that in soil and water background of these projects is everything we've heard today will be taken into consideration and will lead to will lead to a good result for everybody, because it'll take us where it takes us. And the alternative of starting over, I think, is unfair to everybody in this room. And I don't see any good that comes of that. I think we're much better moving forward, letting soil and water do their work, and they'll make an ultimate recommendation that meets the criteria that we've outlined, and that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think starting over, that would delay the process considerably, at least a year, most likely. So I think it makes sense to move forward. We've learned a lot. I think the likely outcome is, again, that the northern part will not be needed and the southern part will be. But that's for the experts to determine. And I have confidence in the engineer in soil and water that they'll figure out the best way to approach this. I would also encourage the landowners to try again to work together and see if we can, see if they can develop a private solution to this. I encourage that consistently. But if that's not possible, then this hearing, the next hearing, would finalize things.
So Brett, what you heard from us is your
Yes, I think, given what we've heard today, the direction we're receiving from the board, along with, obviously individual meetings we'll conduct with the landowners that signed the petition, I think we have the direction we need to move forward.
to get to a good result.
Yes, correct.
Okay. You want to ask for I guess the motion to proceed
Motion
to the second hearing?
to affirm or to proceed to the second hearing.
Resolution number 21-520, In the matter of proceeding with the petition for the Zerby O'Keefe number 265 drainage improvement filed by Gary Graham and Linda Graham and others, in ordering the Delaware County engineer to proceed with preparation of reports, plans, and schedules for the proposed improvement.
So moved.
I second it. Discussion. I'll go first. I believe what I have heard today, the board finds that it is reasonably certain that the benefits of proposed improvements will outweigh its cost. Based on what we've heard today and the input that we've given to Soil and Water, I think we'll get that result. It'd definitely be conducive to the public welfare. And I do believe the project is necessary. So it meets the criteria as I understand it. And Commissioner Benton, you agree?
Yes.
Anything else you want to add?
No?
Call for vote.
Vote on motion 21-520. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye. With that, I believe we're ready to adjourn.